This activity is called rock builder. Now, many rocks take millions of years to form. We haven't got that long, so we're going to see if we can imitate how it might happen much more quickly. Well, here's a piece of rock called sandstone. I wonder how I can find out what it's made of. I know, I'll scrape it with a file and see if we can get any bits off. Here we go. Oh yes, I think we can see there's quite a lot on the tray. Zoom in, and I don't know if you can see through the magnifying glass, but that shows it's got little tiny grains of sand. So sandstone is made up of sand grains. I wonder what we have to do to stick them together to make a hard rock. I've read somewhere that all we need to do to make a sandstone from sand is to squeeze it hard. So I'm going to try that. Here's some loose sand. I'm going to take a good handful and I'm going to squeeze that as hard as I possibly can. My knuckles are going white, so if I'm really squeezing hard, that should turn it to stone. And if I hold my hand over the white dish and drop it, you'll hear it go clunk, because it's a piece of sandstone. Here we go. Well, that wasn't very good. Just squeezing it, even in the earth, doesn't really turn it to sandstone. We need to do something else. I wonder what we would do to stick it together. Well, if you think of sticking things together, you tend to think of glue. So we'll try and see if we can make some rock glue to hold that sand together and turn it to stone. Well, I've put some of the sand into the white dish from a pile of sand I brought with me, and I've got some plaster of Paris, or we could use filler powder, and I'm going to see if that will help make it stick together. So I got plaster of Paris, put some of that in, give it a good stir around. I'm going to stop the video to save wasting time and come back to it in a moment. So I've mixed the plaster of Paris very carefully in with the sand, and now I'm going to add some water. Again, I'm going to do a little bit to show you, and then stop the video while I do it carefully and see if we can get that eventually to make a sandstone. So there's some water going in. I'll be adding some more and stirring in a moment. Well, that took me a few minutes to stir the water in carefully. So there we've got some wet sand with plaster of Paris. Now I'm going to see if I can make a layer of sandstone. I've got an old drinks bottle here, and I'm going to pack the sand into the drinks bottle and see if we can make a layer of sandstone. In nature, this would be perhaps where a river came into the sea and it tipped a lot of sand in, and it turned to stone with some natural chemicals in the water which would stick it together. I'm just going to squash that down a bit. So it does get squashed, but it's the bit that's sticking it together, if you like, the rock glue, which will really make it into sandstone. So again, I'll pause the video while I make a careful job of that layer. So there, I've squashed the sand down into a nice even layer. I want to make some more layers, but if I use the same coloured sand, we won't see them. So I've mixed up in this bowl with a different spoon, and by the way, these are old spoons, they're not ones we have on Sunday dinner table. I'm going to mix that in, put that on top, and see if we can make a separate layer. So I'll start it off and then again stop the video while I squash it down and do it neatly. So in goes some white sand. So now we've got two layers. There's light shining on it rather, but there's a red layer followed by a white layer. I'm going to do one or two more layers. I'm also going to say, I wonder what would happen if a shell got caught up in the sand, a dead shell, I wonder if it could be turned to fossil. So I'm going to do a few layers and I'm going to put a shell in and see what will happen to that as well. Well, now I've built up a few more layers. Perhaps you can see the different layers. And where that hole is, I've actually dropped in a dead cockle shell. And I'm wondering if that will make an imitation fossil when the sand has hardened. I'm going to put just one more cockle shell in and one more layer. There it is. We'll put that in the top this time, so we won't be able to see it from the side. I've pressed it down a bit, and I'm going to put some more. What have we got? We've had white sand, so now it goes red sand for the last layer, going in like that. Squash it down, and I don't think we can see the shell. No, it's right in the middle, but when that's hardened, we'll try cutting it out and see if we can see where the shell was by its imprint in the sand. I wonder. I have to wait a day or two for it all to set before we can have another look at it. Well, I waited for a day to let it set, and I brought it outside now because I think this could be rather messy. I've cut the back of the old plastic bottle. I'm going to take it off and lie my layers of sandstone down and then see if we can extract one of the shells and maybe its imprint, which might in nature have become a fossil. So let's see what happens. Well, there it is. I've taken the plastic off and so far it's stayed together. Now I'm just going to see what happens if I hit it with a chisel and see if we can extract a fossil. So it was in there somewhere, wasn't it? Let's try that. Here we go. Oh, now then. Well, there's the shell. Oh yes, I've got quite a good imprint there, which in nature would be a fossil. The shell would often actually disappear over time. So that's one way in which fossils might be made. I'm going to see if the other shell near the top of my pile of sand has also left an imprint. Let's have a look. Oh, good. There it is. We've got the original shell and we've got the imprint on the other side. Oh, I'm pleased with that. Now we'll finish by looking at some real fossils in rocks which are hundreds of millions of years old. And this is muddy rock. It isn't sandy this time, but you can see there's a whole mass of shell fossils on this slab of mud stone. And the pencil is pointing to just one of those many shells. So they didn't get squashed, they're quite well preserved after all those years. Here's a different slab of mud stone, about the same age as the last one, but it's more difficult to see the fossils. I wonder why. Let's zoom in to where the pencil is pointing. I think you can just see something looking like the rays of a fan. Well, that's actually a shell fossil, but in this case it's been squashed absolutely flat, and it's really quite difficult to see and really makes it very fragile, so you have to be careful when you're handling the lump of rock.